Hey, everybody. I want to talk about sleeping and how beneficial great sleep is to your health and my story. In this episode of Dad Talk, I'm going to talk about my experience with sleep apnea, how we figured it out, how Sandy probably saved my life 20 plus years ago by encouraging me once after we got married to go get checked out. It's an interesting story. I'm going to share it with you and a couple of stats on this episode of Dad Talk. Okay, so Sandy and I have been married for almost 22 years now, and she, God love her, she's the best. She's so awesome. Figure out how to sleep together because, as you know, when you get married and you have a 5-year-old and you got a teenager, it's kind of a tough deal with the blended families, and there's lots of blended families out there. So one thing you don't want to have is sleep issues and being cranky. I mean, you're going to have struggles anyway. So she knew that there was something wrong with me. I went in, had a sleep study done. The doctor immediately, sat me down and said, well, can you sit in a chair and fall asleep? And I said, well, yeah, I always have been ever since, when I was a kid in college. I mean, anytime. 2 to 4% of Americans have an undiagnosed case of sleep apnea. And this accounts for approximately 1 in 50 individuals being undiagnosed due to the sleeplessness and lack of ability to concentrate that are associated with sleep apnea. Sufferers are 6 times more likely to die in a car accident. 50 to 70 million adults have a sleep disorder. Sandy has disjointed sleep because she had a sleep study done too, and she's always been the really, really light sleeper. I like to say she's like the princess in the pea. That's the kind of the analogy I use for her. But she can wake up and then she can't get back to sleep, and it's a terrible thing for her. And she was in healthcare for her whole career and got up really early. And anybody who's in healthcare, you know what I'm talking about, because it's a rough gig. And so when you're only getting your good REM sleep from like 4 to 6 o'clock in the morning, because her sleep study showed that, it doesn't help when you got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get ready to go to work. So for her, this was a big problem. And for me, getting my problem fixed was only the beginning, because we went from the bowling ball, thousands and thousands of dollars of bed, the really fancy bed, to separate beds in our bedroom, to finally, like 12, 15 years later, going into separate rooms. Now, don't be afraid to share with people that you and your spouse sleep in separate rooms. It's actually a benefit to us because our love for each other is stronger now because we get our rest. It has helped so much with my health. Now, one of the biggest things that I found with my sleep apnea is if I don't sleep well, I put on weight. And that's one of the many things that can occur with people who suffer from sleep apnea. You put on weight, you can have narrowed airways, you can have chronic nasal congestion, you can also have high blood pressure. Men are twice as likely to have sleep apnea. Children who have undiagnosed sleep apnea could potentially have an 8 to 10 point drop on their IQ test. So all of those things baked into what I'm talking about. Get checked out. Take my advice. It'll make your marriage better enough to have a relationship and a family and your kids and all of these things. Not to have good rest and perform well at work is the first step to having a terrible, terrible existence. And so I hope you like, subscribe, whatever. Dad Talk. Tom Matt. Peace out.